This day in sports history.
Hey, I'm golf broadcaster Matt Adams. The updated and expanded second edition of my book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments, is now available. Readers can expect to march with Arnie's Army at the 1960 U.S. Open, relive Jack Nicklaus's remarkable 1986 Masters win, and be amazed by the Tiger Slam. The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments. Pick it up where fine books are sold, including BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com.
Hey, this is Steve White, the host of This Day in Sports History. Before I get to today's episode, I want to talk to you about the continuing unfolding situation here in Western North Carolina as it continues to be dire for so many who lost everything. Those who still have a home may be without power or access to clean or running water for several more weeks. Some are trapped by washed-out roads. Communication has been severed. Consider a donation to the Western North Carolina Red Cross or another local charity that's doing work to help those affected by Hurricane Helene. Let's bring some normalcy back to life for so many who have been disrupted. I've put some links in the show notes if you would like a few suggestions. Thanks. And now today's episode. A one-of-a-kind perfect day, a play so famous it's just called The Double, and another long losing streak was snapped. It's October 8th, and this is This Day in Sports History, a brief journey around what happened in sports history on this day. Let's start in 1956, when an average pitcher did something extraordinary. You could call him a journeyman. This was only his fourth year as a big leaguer, and the New York Yankees was his third team. He played with the St. Louis Browns, then the Baltimore Orioles, and then with the Yanks beginning in 1955. You could call him average. His career win-loss total at this point in his career was sub 500. He'd led the league in losses with 21 in 1954. But for one day, he caught lightning in a bottle and took advantage of his good fortune. This was Game 5 of the 1956 World Series. Don Larsen had started Game 2, and he was clobbered by Los Angeles hitters in that one, giving up 4 unearned runs, and he was yanked in the second inning in what turned out to be a 13-8 Brooklyn romp. So here he was, 3 days later, standing on the hill at Yankee Stadium. Larsen and Brooklyn starter Sal Maglie matched each other pitch for pitch through the first 3 innings. Mickey Mantle hit a solo homer off Maglie in the 4th, and the Yankees picked up another run in the 6th. Larsen kept on rolling into the 9th. No runs, no hits, no walks, no errors by the men behind him. In the 9th, he enticed Carl Furillo to hit a lazy fly ball out, got Roy Campanella to ground out, and then the 27th batter that Larsen faced was Dale Mitchell, pinch hitting for Maglie. Mitchell was a dangerous .312 career hitter. And with a call that day, here's Bob Wolf.
Dale Mitchell comes up with 2 out in the 9th inning. Here comes the pitch, and it's ball 1. Ball 1 to Dale Mitchell. With 2 away in the 9th. Here comes the next pitch. A strike call. That is 1-1. And this crowd just straining forward at every pitch. 1-1 to Mitchell. He's a left-handed batter. Here it comes. A swing and a miss. 2 strikes, ball 1 to Dale Mitchell. Listen to this crowd. 2 strikes. Ball 1 to Mitchell with 2 away in the 9th. I'll guarantee that nobody, but nobody has left this ballpark. Larsen is ready, gets the sign. 2 strikes, ball 1. Here comes the pitch. Strike 3. A no-hitter, a perfect game for Don Larsen. Yogi Berra runs out there. He leaps on Larsen, and he's swarmed by his teammates. Listen to this crowd roar.
It was the first and still only perfect game thrown in the postseason. Larsen used a new no-wind-up delivery in this game, which baffled the Dodger hitters. He struck out 7. Maglie, who had actually appeared on the game show What's My Line the night before, pitched a pretty solid game. He gave up 2 earned runs on 5 hits. He struck out 5 and walked 2, and he only faced 29 batters. On this day in 1995, Edgar Martinez hit the most famous double in Major League Postseason history, and without a doubt, in Seattle Mariners history. It was Game 5 of the American League Divisional Playoff between the New York Yankees and the Mariners. Before I get to the game, you should know that the Mariners faced a lot of adversity. They'd only had 3 winning seasons in franchise history, with 95 being one of those. A furious comeback from 13 games back in August to tie the flailing California Angels forced a 1-game playoff, which Seattle won to advance to the ALDS. Also, you need to know that the ownership group of the Mariners wanted the city to add a 1% sales tax to pay for a new stadium. When that was put to a vote, King County residents said no. Seattle officials were put on notice by the owners of the team that if there was not a plan to build a new stadium by October 30th, the team would be put up for sale. So, now that you know that, you'll understand why this hit was so huge. The Yankees had won the first 2 games of the series, and things looked pretty dark for Seattle until they came back to win Games 3 and 4 to force the deciding Game 5 in the Kingdome. Seattle had to rally again in this game, erasing a 2-run deficit in the 8th inning to send the game to extras. In the 11th, the Yankees took a 1-run lead with Randy Velarde driving in the go-ahead run. The Yankees brought in Jack McDowell to close the game out. Now, McDowell was usually a starter, but he did make a rare relief appearance every now and then, and he was set to face the heart of the Seattle lineup. Joey Cora reached first on a bunt single. Ken Griffey Jr. singled to right, allowing Cora to go to third, and that brought up Edgar Martinez. Martinez had a great regular season in '95. He was an all-star, finished third in the MVP balloting that season after leading the American League with a .356 batting average. And he also led the league in doubles. Here's the Mariners' Dave Niehaus with the call.
They would love a base hit into the gap, and they could win it with Junior speed to stretch. And the 0-1 pitch on the way to Edgar Martinez. Swung on the line, down the left field line for a base hit. Here comes Joy. Here is Junior to third base. They're going to wave him in. The throw to the plate will be late. The Mariners are going to play for the American League Championship. I don't believe it. It just continues. My, oh my. Edgar Martinez with a double. Ripped down the left field line, and they are going crazy at the Kingdome.
The Mariners would play in the ALCS against Cleveland, losing in 6 games. But Edgar Martinez's double is credited with saving baseball in Seattle. The Mariners played in the Kingdome until June 1999 and then moved into Safeco Park, which is now known as T-Mobile Park. On this day in 2000, Michael Schumacher used pit strategy to win a race and then lock up another Formula One championship. This was the second to last race in the season in Japan. Schumacher entered the race with an 8-point advantage over Mika Häkkinen. Schumacher took the pole, but Häkkinen grabbed the advantage from the drop of the flag and led most of the early laps. A light rain played into this one a little bit too. Häkkinen was out front, but with the wet track conditions, he drove a little more cautiously around the track. He had had a retirement in the previous race, and he just couldn't afford to do that for a second race in a row and still contend for the title. There was one more race left on the schedule, so he let off the accelerator a bit, and that allowed Schumacher to make up some ground. With the second round of pit stops, Schumacher stayed out for an extra 3 laps and took advantage of the clean air and track conditions. And when he finally pulled in for new rubber, he had picked up an additional 4 seconds on Häkkinen and used that to win his 8th race of the year and secure his 3rd F1 championship. And we've talked about the longest losing streak in FBS football, the longest losing streak in all of college football. Well, how about the end to the longest losing streak in FCS football, or as it was labeled back in 1988, 1AA football? When you think of Columbia, the first thing that jumps to your mind is not football. You think law school or secret societies or Ivy League. Well, on this day in 1988, The Lions football team beat Princeton 16-13. They took the lead with 5:13 to play in the game and then had to sweat out a last-second Princeton field goal that came up just a few yards short. It was Columbia's first win in 5 years, and it snapped their 44-game losing streak. That streak was the longest at the time and stayed that way until Prairie View's struggles in the 90s that I mentioned a few days back. And time now for today's Nothing to Do with Sports Fun Fact. There's a metal band that has adopted a Ned Flanders theme. They're called Oakley Dokley. That's all I've got for you today. Thanks for checking out this episode. I hope you come back tomorrow for another edition of This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.